Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. Tonight I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to try and do a video that's a bit more free form, just me talking about my thoughts, some of the things that I've been thinking about and reflecting about, and see where it goes. I've been thinking a lot about the events of the world. I've been thinking about my own path, particularly when it comes to the angelic workings that I've done and the sort of responsibilities that has put on my shoulders, particularly when it comes to the sort of messages that I received and what I need to do with them. So it's going to be a very reflective video, going to reflect, maybe even prophesy a little bit. We'll see. But yeah, I just want to talk about some of those things. I feel like I'm reaching the end of a chapter with the spiritual work that I've been doing this year. I felt reinvigorated to revisit my Enochian work as a result of doing the videos that I've done this year, documenting everything with the fulfil ritual. I've actually gone back and looked again at the 49 tables of Loggar, and I found a version of those tables that have been reconstructed by a guy called Cliff. He seems to have really gone to town with it and made it his COVID project, and it's a better version of the tables than I've ever seen. So what I kind of did was I recreated the table of the book of Loggar for myself again, and I incorporated those tables as well as the missing table, and I tried to really follow the instructions of Dean Kelly and have the silk and all the rest of it. And I've just been spending the last 48 days kind of going and praying over one of the tables a day with the prayer of Enoch, and kind of putting my consciousness in the same space and time as when I was doing the fulfil ritual, so that the two are kind of happening simultaneously. That's apparently a thing I can do now, I've learned. Move into the past in the astral. So that's what I've been doing. I've been reconsecrating the tables of Loggar and adding to the force of that working back in 2014-15. I'm almost at the end now. I have gone with the Leech's recommendation this time of starting at the second table and moving down to the 49th, and then on the final 49th day reading the prayers over the first table. And the day when I'm supposed to read the first table is actually tomorrow, so I'm on the brink of finishing this period of prayer and ritual, working with the tables of Loggar. So it's really been a season for me of tying up loose ends so far as the fulfil ritual is concerned, so far as my work with the Enochian angels is concerned, and even with the Holy Guardian Angel. I've mentioned in previous videos that I had a number of revelations, both from my own HGA and from the Enochian angels, and I wrote those revelations down, and I was given the task of arranging them, going through them very carefully to test for false revelation, and using the spirit of discernment to discard those revelations which maybe came from my own ego, or in a more sinister fashion, perhaps from a spirit that I really didn't want to be communicating with. And I finished that process, and then I also needed to write a commentary for a number of the revelations that I received. I finished that commentary actually quite recently, and before I did even that, I actually received one final revelation from the Enochian angels related to the missing call that I received. So the angels told me at one point that there was some information pertaining to the missing call, the level of the heavens that are opened by that call, which the angels didn't reveal to me straight away during the initial Gebethel ritual, because I wasn't ready. I needed to be all in with the forces of the light before they were willing to give that information up. And that time has come now, so I reopened the final gate using the missing call that I received, and I received a further revelation. And it was to do with the mysteries of the Christ, the esoteric mysteries of the Christ, and in particular, the true meaning of the second coming. And there's not much that I can reveal right now publicly, but suffice to say that there's been a lot of misconceptions about what the second coming means. It's not going to be like what the evangelical Christians think, like during the rapture there's going to be Jesus coming down, flying down like Goku on a cloud, you know, to beat all the forces of darkness with his superpowers and rescue all of the Christians by taking them up into the heavens before the world gets destroyed. That's not how it's going to happen. And then you've got the misconception that the second coming is going to be something like the first coming. And so you've got all of these cult leaders and megalomaniacs coming out and saying that it's them, that they are the reincarnation of Jesus, or that they are the Maitreya or the 10th avatar of Vishnu, or whatever it is, to say that it's them, they're the second coming. But of course, from the Gospels we know that that's not how the Christ would come again. He said in his own words that it wouldn't happen that way. And actually, what this second coming is, as it's been revealed to me, is it's like a theophany or a Christophany. The manifestation very suddenly of the presence of the divine to the human being, a kind of revelation of the divine presence by way of an experience of it. But it's going to be a theophany, a revelation that is available to all people. That sounds very esoteric and very abstract, and I'm still trying to understand it myself. The big clue seems to be the Christ saying that he would return on the clouds of heaven, and what the symbolism of clouds is throughout the Bible as a symbol of God's presence, and how some kind of phenomenon of the divine suddenly becoming imminent and tangible in terms of its influence upon the world throughout the Bible is always accompanied by symbolism of clouds or a cloud. But that's probably all I can say about that just for now. By some mystery, you know, there could be this sudden outpouring of the Christ Spirit in the world, which represents the second coming. And I think it's closer than we think. Much closer. Because I feel like we're entering a new chapter. I feel like I'm entering a new chapter in my own life now that I've received this final revelation and I've finished the commentary. You know, I've got a first draft of the book that I'm supposed to show to people that contains these revelations. It still needs some work, but the edits will be very minor. Still likely be some years before I release it though, because I need to prepare myself to be worthy but before I can share that with anybody else. But I do feel like, as much as a new chapter in my own journey is opening, or perhaps an old one is closing, the same applies to collective humanity and the season that they are in, that we are in. And the reason I say that is because as I have finished this first draft of the book that I mentioned, just as I was doing that, the events in Israel and Palestine first began to break out. It was like exactly the same time. And in the days that followed, a lot of the commentary that I saw on those events, it was quite shocking for a couple of reasons. But I mean, the most obvious reason is just knowing, or being shocked at what had happened already to innocent people, and knowing that so many more innocent lives were going to be removed from this world, and just seeing that on the horizon and knowing it was coming, and feeling powerless, and all that I felt, that I felt compassion for every person who's innocent, who is going to suffer as a result of that conflict. And I think all I felt that I could do was pray for peace in Jerusalem. And I know that that's corny, and in the past I've been the kind of person who would make fun of people who have nothing to offer to the injustices of the world but thoughts and prayers. But in this instance, the situation now is just so grim that it's almost like all we can really do to hold on to the chance of peace is to just have a unwavering faith that in spite of everything, somehow, someday it will happen. And prayer is good for instilling that kind of faith, if nothing else. So that's what I did. I prayed for peace. And then the other thing that I noticed was the apocalyptic commentary that people were giving. In particular, there were many Bible scholars or Bible experts or preachers who pointed out similarities between the events unfolding in the Middle East and where they could lead us, the similarities between that potential scenario and the book of Ezekiel, where it speaks about the war of Gog and Magog, where it talks about a war in the end times, or a situation that is approaching war between Israel, which didn't exist for about 1900 years until 1948, and then other nations which are named, Gog, which likely represents a nation to the north, which many Bible scholars identify with modern-day Russia, or at least some of the territory that is today a part of Russia. It mentions Persia, which of course is Iran, and it mentions other nations which are roughly equivalent to parts of the Caucasus, again controlled by Russia today, as well as what is today Libya and Ethiopia or Sudan. And the interesting thing is, for the first time in history, there is a series of alliances between various nations which were inconceivable up until the last few years, which means that if this war, if this conflict escalates too far, then we could see all of those nations drawn into a wider conflict. And if those nations ultimately are forced to retreat, then we'll see the fulfillment in quite literal terms of a biblical prophecy. So, and not just any biblical prophecy, but one of the main prophecies that remains to be fulfilled before the return of the Christ, or the coming of the King the first time around, if you prescribe to the Jewish view. So quite uncanny, quite apocalyptic events that are unfolding. And it seems like the timing of this, with completing the first draft of the book, it's like the divine is giving me a message that the time is short and the process is unfolding, and it doesn't have long to go before there is a dramatic change in the season that we find ourselves in spiritually as a species. And that might seem scary, but there's also a lot of hope in that, because it also represents the return of the light. I mean, I don't know if you even believe in Bible prophecy. I think it can be quite often misconstrued. I think that, you get these televangelists who come along and try and twist the prophecies to try and fit with, stuff that Barack Obama is doing or whatever it is. And it just gets a bit ridiculous. Trying to fit the symbols of the Bible so that they're referring to their own pet peeves and rebuking their own pet peeves and political rivals, and it's really quite superficial. And I think prophecy has been interpreted that way for a long time. But I do think that there's some legitimacy to those prophecies, because I believe in divination. I believe in other predictions that various wise figures have made, that they will be fulfilled on some level. And I believe the same thing about Bible prophecy. It would be selection bias in the extreme to exclude one data set just because I don't like the religious establishments that promote those ideas. I do think that most of the prophecies in the Bible that evangelical Christians expect to still come about have already been fulfilled, either in the time of Antiochus IV, otherwise known as Antiochus Epiphanes, or else they were fulfilled during the 1st century of the Common Era with the coming of Yeshua, with the persecution of Christians by the Roman emperors, particularly Nero, and finally with the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. I think that collection of events fulfilled most of the prophecies in the Old Testament and even the New. But some do remain to be unfulfilled, and the war of Gog and Magog is one of them, and the return of the Christ is another one, and peace among the nations is another one. And I don't know if this period that we're living in now is going to culminate in the fulfillment of the Gog and Magog prophecy, or even if that prophecy ever was meant to be taken literally, or if it's just a figurative scenario, or even a reference to the events of the 1st century. Who knows? A final opponent which has been mistaken as different to the final opponent that Revelation talks about, which is really, the Roman Empire, and that's that has come and gone. But maybe it isn't, and there's also this level that prophecy, including Bible prophecy, operates at, where all of the symbols, all the characters, all the events of those prophecies exist at an archetypal level, and because human nature remains unchanged until it is redeemed, and we go through the same karmic cycles over and over again until we achieve that redemption, the same types of corrupt world rulers, the same types of hypocritical religious leaders, the same wars, the same economic control systems, the same coming forth of a faithful remnant courageously against the wickedness of the rest of the world. These things repeat themselves throughout history again and again. And so even if the prophecies of the Bible, including most of Revelation, has been fulfilled in real time, there is a sense in which it's always being rehashed as we replay the same scenarios with the same archetypes throughout history. And perhaps the moment that we find ourselves in now is another repetition of the archetypal war of Gog and Magog. And perhaps it represents a window of opportunity for us to find our redemption as a species if we know where to look. But I do think that it definitely feels like we're on the brink of something big over the next few years. I know I've been feeling the presence of evil in the world very strongly these last few years. I feel like it's become more apparent than it has been really for as long as I've been alive. It's almost like we're at that part in the movie where the villain is confronted by the hero. The hero finally finds the villain in their lair, and the villain feels so confident that they have won, that they boast about their big plan that's been unfolding this whole time and is finally coming to fruition to fulfill whatever nefarious purpose the villain has in mind. And they're so confident that they've won that they're boasting about it openly to the hero. They're putting all their cards on the table. And it feels like that's what the forces of evil are doing now, particularly in the past few years. They've laid out their plans for everyone to see because they think they're going to win. But they're soon going to realize that that's not the case. And they will be defeated as every tyranny throughout history has been defeated. Just as the Babylonians fell when they saw the writing on the wall, just as the Persians fell, the monolithic tyranny of that empire was brought down by the Greeks, just as the Seleucid Empire fell and the Roman Empire fell, so too will the Black Iron Prison, the modern empire that is trying to engulf the world, so too will that fall. And it will be brought down by the light of the human spirit. And I really feel like it's coming. It's coming in ways that we can't ever really dream of at this point. It's a difficult thing to put into words, and it's so counterintuitive given how dark everything is right now. But I feel like the faithful among the human race are about to rise up in spirit, and they are about to change the face of the world. And it's going to be a true game changer in the progress that we make towards our collective spiritual awakening. It's a hard thing to put into words, but there's just so many things that give me hope and give me the feeling that there's some mysterious hand of providence guiding events in the world, and it's guiding them towards a purpose. And ultimately, despite our bad choices that we've been making for thousands of years, it's a purpose that will serve the highest good. And so I look forward to the future. My heart aches for those who suffer in the world, and and I feel compassion for all the people out there who are going through tremendous suffering for whatever reason, whether it's the wars that are going on, or just inflation, or sickness, or political polarization, political persecution, whatever it is. I feel for all the people that are having a hard time out there, but I also feel a lot of hope. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so I hope that by me sharing this with you, that you can perhaps learn to see it for yourself. Good things are coming. I'm sure that they are. Maybe not things of the world. I don't think that the world, particularly in modern society, has much that is any good to offer anyone anymore. But the Spirit does. And the Spirit will provide for us in our time of need. And what a time of need it is. So have faith and have hope, for those good things are coming. That would be my big message from this video. That's it. Those are the things that have been playing on my mind recently. So maybe you've had similar thoughts. I don't know. Leave whatever comments you have down below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy what I'm doing here. Subscribe to my Odyssey as well. And as always, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.